Guys, Cliff here. Today I'm going to go ahead and we're going to actually sharpen something. I'm going to take you through the process. I got these knives to sharpen over on the bench behind me. I got an assembly line set up. I'm going to walk and talk you through the process and try and be really quick about it. Let's get going. Okay, the first thing I like to do with any knife, even one I've already sharpened, is give it a quick visual inspection. I've already sharpened these knives previously at, I think it was 14 degrees. And they're coming back. This one was the most heavily used. I'm going to try and show it on camera. Is you hold it directly into the light until you see the reflection on the edge of the blade. And that'll show you where the damage is. Anywhere that light reflects, it's very blunt. And let's take a look at that under the microscope. If you have one of those, that's great. You don't need it. Any sort of magnification will work, but there you go. You can see the light reflecting in it. I previously sharpened this bevel, so it looks clean, but the apex, you can see where it's been rounded off as I go over the top. And I'll just slide down real quick and we'll see some of the other damage. This is fairly typical for a knife. I'm not seeing any chipping, which would mean the angle is too narrow and the metal is too coarse. These knives have got a softer steel, so that's why they're just kind of mushing out. Here's a nice little blunt spot. And the width of the secondary bevel is about a 1/2 millimeter, and I'll try and measure that. But let's get over to the sharpening process. So this is our damage to begin with. Okay, today I've got a 4-step process set up, and because I have 4 machines, I've got them all set up in a little assembly line. I thought that would be fun. I just did get a couple more angle guides, so all the machines have angle guides on them. The final step is a stropping step. It's reversed, and I'll show that in much more detail. Let's talk about the first part. We're going to take and use a 120 grit belt, and basically that's to remove that damage we saw on the apex, and we're also changing the angle of the secondary grind. So this 120 grit, we won't have to do a huge amount of passes, probably 1 or 2, and the job will be done. Second step today is going to be a A100 Trizac belt, approximately 220 grit. You could use whatever you have, but I'm just using this as an example. This is mostly just to make sure that we don't leave any serious scratches from the 120 grit, because it is a rough belt. And this was a much smoother finish, and then we'll be at about 220 grit. Third and final sharpening step today with a abrasive belt will be the A30 belt, and that's going to be at about 600 grit. I'm slowing the speed down a little bit. You don't have to. I'm just telling you what I'm doing. The slower speed will minimize the heat buildup, but we're also only going to be doing a couple passes on this. And then when we get to the final step, that's going to be a stropping step. And I'm using an angle guide for this, but the belt is going in the reverse direction. I'm going to mention that several times. Okay, I'm going to get set up and let's do it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start the 3-step sharpening process. Again, first belt is 120. I just want to remove the reflected glint and stop right there. Second step is to refine the scratch pattern and get a finer apex. Third grit, same thing, final couple touches. We're not removing a lot of metal, we're just refining the scratch pattern. So here we go. Actually does a couple more things. It gets you down through any worn, it gets you to fresh steel, as they say, and it allows you a chance to have put a new pointy tip on it. If you find your blades are getting hot and you're running a stock motor with the high RPMs, one of the tricks you can do is actually start at the tip. And a lot of times you'll see me go heel to tip and then I will touch the tip a couple times, and I do one final pass from tip to heel, and that is just to eliminate, if you go from heel to tip, all the heat comes and follows you up, and then you put all the heat right at the end, and that's where you'll get your brown tip, and you don't want that, of course. So same thing here. Hear the difference in the machine. Again, 220, here we go. Love this machine and how it sounds. Unfortunately, this little case is just a little bit in the way. You'll see I actually moved my fingers out of the way for that. By far the smoothest running, and every machine seems like it's just got something that's just not quite right, unfortunately. Here's the big one. This is at the highest speed. Sounds very similar to the others. It's smooth. And I'm just going to slow it down because we are running that 600 grit belt. Down and up. That's all there is to it. Okay, here we are, low magnification. This is that heel area again, and you can see we removed all the damage. You can see a little bit of a burr. We were going edge leading, so the burr is minimized, but basically you got still a scrappy edge. If you go right up over the top, you can see that line, and you can see the roughness to it. Now it feels very sharp, but what it feels like is almost like a micro wire brush. There is a bunch of little particles and stuff, and that's not what we want. What we're going to try and do is we're going to try and strop to remove any loose particles and get it sharper without removing all of the scratches. But here's the edge, and I can even go up and take a look at the tip real quick. And there's the tip we were able to put on just that quick. It's almost a needle point. So we saw what the edge looked like under magnification after the abrasives. Damage has been removed. We got a fine scratch pattern from the 600 grit or the A30 grit belt. Now we need to do the final step, and it's probably the most critical step. If you don't have this kind of a setup, what you would probably be doing is running this thing in this sort of a fashion with the belt going away from you. Then you need to approximate and experiment to get that right angle. I recommend going very lightly and adjusting your angle, feeling and testing. And we'll talk about the feeling and testing. It's something that you just kind of get over time. But I've been experimenting with this. This is running the variable DC motor, and it's in reverse. So this angle guide has been worn out from using heavy grit belts, and so it has a large gap on it, and I'm going away from this. I would never go this way. You would never put a blade up into a felt belt while you're stropping. It'll cut the belt. It'll hurt you bad. So don't ever do that. The belt is going up and away. And what I have on here today is I've got a new black felt belt. You can find these out on the web. I'll put some links maybe in the description below. And I'm trying a new product today. It's a 3-micron diamond spray. I got it from Sharper Edges. You can find them. Their website is sharpedgesinil.com. I'll try and put a link down below for that as well. It's a great jump off spot after like a 2,000 or 3,000 grit belt. This is 3-micron, and then we're going to use it today. I did have to do some experimenting, which makes it a great test subject to show you guys a little bit more about the stropping. All the steps up to this point have been at 15 degrees as close as possible so that the angle matches when I do the next step, and you don't see any bevel changes. So we got 15 degrees, 15 degrees, 15 degrees for the final step. And then this step, we're actually dropping it down to about 14 degrees. And that's, again, we're dropping it down so that when the felt comes over the top, it doesn't blunt and round off that edge. And in this case, we're going for even a finer level. What we're trying to do is actually have it hit the edge, but not really hit the top. So we're going to remove some of the material. And if we do this right, you should see the bottom of the bevel will be more polished. The scratch pattern is starting to be removed. The top will still have some of the scratch pattern, but we're also going to bring it in and it'll be tight. Okay, that's the concept. Let's go ahead and run it. Basically, it's a light pressure, and what you have to really focus on, and the angle guide helps with this, is keeping a good angle. You can hear it. I'm just letting the belt kind of touch and buff. Not really positioned right. So I'm just letting it buff and whisk away that burr, any loose material, and it starts to polish it. Now I did have to do a couple tests to find the right angle. I started at 15 degrees, and at 15 degrees it felt dull. I tried it at 13.5 degrees, and under the scope I could see it wasn't even hitting up at the top. I actually used a Sharpie marker, and I put a Sharpie marker on here, and then when I hit with the felt belt, I could see more clearly where it was. Now this edge feels sticky to the touch. There's no damage. It feels sticky to the touch, but it'll also shave hair right off your arm. And that's kind of what the goal of today was. 600 grit, but leave a little bit of that tooth. Okay, let me grab a newspaper here and we'll try this edge. This is unrehearsed. And that's a great edge. Okay, here it is under low magnification. Little harder to see, but the bottom part of this bevel is losing some of its scratch pattern. You can kind of see there where we're really smoothing that out. The top has retained its scratch pattern. You can even see, and we'll look at it under high magnification as well, but when we come up over the top, you no longer see a little bit of a hint right there about the middle of a micro glint, but everything else has been apexed under magnification. You can still see some of the toothiness, and that's that stickiness that you feel when you run your finger down it. It's really good for slicing through any soft tissue or anything like that, vegetables. If you continue, you can go to a mirror polish that will absolutely split a hair, but you lose that slicing ability. All right, I'm going to pause real quick. Okay, here it is under high magnification. Gonna just try and show down. Sorry I didn't pull out the micrometer, but this is about a little under 1 millimeter the bevel width, so I'll give you an idea of what the scale is we're looking at. And this is the top of that edge. And so those are like just what we were talking about. We've removed any loose material, but we've kept the toothiness from the 600, and this is completely optional. You could do it at 200, 400, 600, 800, 1000. The scratch pattern will be finer, and the serrations or the teeth, the micro serrations, will be different. 600 seems like a nice combo and also makes it for an easy sharpening process. So that's an actual Toothy polished both at the same time and in a quick fashion. Once this is set up, I'll be able to do all those other knives in just a matter of minutes. Not going to bother showing that. I thought this was worth sharing with you guys. Been a while since I did a video. Really appreciate all the feedback and the comments from everybody. Got a lot of things going on in the works, but we'll just have to stay tuned for those. Thanks you guys for watching. Have a great day.